Scott Walker joins us right now.
Good morning. Good to be back with you.
It's like twice, right? You had to do the recall thing, right, Governor?
That's right. Third election in 4 years. I'm getting pretty good at it.
You are, and you are like the poster child for everything organized labor, especially public unions. You're like, how much money, how many different, it's not like you just had to take on people in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, the entire public union sector was galvanized twice to try and beat you, and you got elected both times, well, third time now, and it's not the most, it's not the reddest of states either.
No, it was a blue state. 4 years ago, everything was Democrat, both U.S. senators, majority of seats in the House of Representatives, both houses in the state legislature and the governor. We switched everything. And you're right, they targeted us. Richard Trumka, the head of the AFL-CIO, was here just days before the election. He was here earlier in the year. He, the head of the NEA, the teachers union, the head of AFSCME nationally, all said I was their #1 target in the country, not just for governors, but amongst the Senate, the House, and governors. Why? Because we took their power away. We took the power away from the big government special interest in Washington, and we put it in the hands of the taxpayers right here in our state. And in the end, the taxpayers decided they wanted the power to stay with them and not with these big government special interests.
What's it done for the fiscal condition of Wisconsin and the entitlements that the state has promised people? How much have you saved, and how much better shape are you in right now?
Our Act 10 reforms, which are the changes we made to collective bargaining, which is what the unions were upset about, have saved state and local taxpayers over $3 billion. In fact, property taxes in this state this December are actually lower than they were 4 years ago when I started. Who would have thought of that anywhere in the country? But it's basically, we put the power back in the hands of the people at the local and the state level instead of the big government union bosses. And they don't like that much. And the nice thing is it's not just about the money saved. For example, our schools have no seniority or tenure requirements anymore. They can hire and fire based on merit. They can pay based on performance. They can actually put the best and the brightest in the classrooms, and it's paid off. 4 years in a row, our graduation rates are up. Third grade reading scores are up. ACT scores are up, now second best in the country. So remember all those protesters 3 years ago who said the world was going to come to an end with public education. It just didn't pan out. In the end, our schools are better.
And Governor, just compare the average benefit picture for a private sector employee in Wisconsin and the current or revised benefits package or pay-ins, contributions. You would think that you were going to zero with the public. Is it
right?
Is it below now? Is a public union employee the benefits below the average private sector employee at this point?
No, our public servants still get a great deal. We pay half of their pension, and we only require them to make just over 12% of the premium contribution for health care. A typical family in our state pays 20 to 25%. I remember my brother, who's a banquet manager and a part-time bartender, his wife sells appliances for Sears. They're a typical American working family. My brother said when we did all this, he said, I'd love to have what you're offering these public employees. So what we did was very reasonable, but in the end, it just put people more in line with where everyday citizens are, the taxpayers in our state.
Governor, we'll switch gears completely here. You were making comments about the most recent election, and I understand that the president's not running again, but I would say that maybe some of his policies were probably that was a vote on some of his policies. But you said Hillary Clinton was actually a bigger loser than President Obama. Why?
I think so for a couple reasons. Overall, obviously, she's an extension. She'd be a third term of this president. She's a part of his cabinet, embraces the same policies. And I think the larger context, what we saw on the campaign trail is Hillary Clinton is the big loser. She's the one most connected to Washington. I think this was a reaction to Washington. I think people are tired of the top-down, old, artificial, government knows best approach. And instead, they want this new, fresh, from the ground up approach that we see particularly in the states. The other big news, besides just Hillary Clinton being a big loser and Washington being a loser, was the fact that in the states where Republicans took leadership roles 4 years ago, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Ohio, and Florida, not only did you have governors win, you had Republican majorities sustained, or in our case here in Wisconsin, grown. I think it's a great message to my friends in Washington who are now taking over the United States Senate majorities. You got to lead. Or as I said in Politico magazine this week, it's put up or shut up time. It's now time for us to step up and lead. And when you lead, voters, even in key battleground states, appreciate that leadership, and they affirmed it last Tuesday.
Those are the two questions. I wonder what lead means for Republicans that control both houses. I don't know what lead means. I don't know whether that means, keep putting up bills that are just going to be vetoed, keep repealing Obamacare, keep doing things that aren't going to go anywhere, which could cause voters to just say, wow, this is just more of the same, and then flip back again in 2 years. That's one question. What should Republicans do for 2 years? And then the second question that you can answer is, what kind of candidate should the Republicans run in 2016? Someone like Jeb Bush or someone like Rand Paul or Ted Cruz?
Well, again, I laid out in this column I wrote for that said "Put Up or Shut Up" in Political Magazine. I think they do need the lead. I think they do need to be aggressive. The House has been its chance to lead the Senate. I'd put forward a drop in the tax rate to put more money in the hands of American consumers out there. I'd pull back on the corporate tax rate to bring money back from around the world back to bring those American jobs back home. I particularly, and I think we'll have a chance with the Keystone Pipeline, I'd do more to provide an all-of-the-above energy policy, to actually have an energy policy in this country that's focused on North America and other places around the world. Certainly repealing Obamacare is a part of that. That's going to take at least 2 years, but I think you can make the case on that. And I think reining in many of the federal agencies that are standing in the way of prosperity and moving our entitlement programs, particularly when it comes to traditional welfare programs, towards a system where it embraces the dignity that comes from work. I think those are all things that Republicans in the House and the Senate can push. I think the president's going to have to look twice at whether or not he's going to veto those things. I think going forward, what you need is a big, bold leader from outside of Washington who can finish the deal and show the American people that we can take on Washington, D.C., dismantle it, and send the power not only back to the states, but ultimately to the people. And that's what our founders wanted.
Governor, you mentioned welfare programs. There's a piece in the Washington Post, I think either out today or just this week, talking about how you're seeking to test welfare recipients for drug use as part of the welfare payments that they get, food stamps and the like. You haven't come out with the program. How do you imagine a program like that would work? And do you think that would be a politically palatable program?
Yes, and we're working on it right now. I have a budget that'll come out early next year. The one thing I've heard of the last few years out on the trail, not just campaigning but as governor, these employers, at least in my state, we're hiring signs all over the place. That's a good, optimistic piece of news. I think it's part of the reason why I won, was people can see that their neighbors are getting hired, that businesses are putting up, we're hiring, come on in and sign up to work for us. But the two big things I hear from employers increasingly is that they can't find enough people with basic employability skills. I mean basic things, not skills like welding or machining. I mean just literally showing up for work every day all the time. The other big thing I hear in construction and transportation and healthcare and other areas is they can't find enough people who can pass a drug test. So it just seems ridiculous to me that we're going to give people public assistance, particularly if they're able-bodied adults without children. Why would we set them up for failure? And so this is saying, if you want our help, we'll help you out temporarily, but we expect that you're going to find a job, and we're going to help you find that job. And part of helping you do is you're free from drugs, so you can pass that test and be employed, because there's jobs to be had in our state.
Governor, if you were, okay, so you got, let me try again. You got Jeb Bush over here and Chris Christie, and then you got Rand Paul over here and Ted Cruz. Where is Scott Walker? You more moderate than Jeb Bush out here, more electable? You closer to these guys and to Rand? I don't want to, pigeonhole people, but seriously, what makes sense for the Republicans in 2016 if it is Hillary Clinton to beat her?
Well, I think what I've shown in Wisconsin is I'm a common sense conservative who gets things done. I think the biggest reason people hate Washington. Oh no, I said that's what people say in Wisconsin. That's what they see. That I know. I've seen that angle before. No, in my case, I think I'm a common sense conservative here in Wisconsin that gets things done. I think that's why in a swing state at best, a state that hasn't gone Republican for president since I was in high school 30 years ago, that's why I got elected 3 times. Now, I think someone like that, and I think there are more than just one out there, but I think there are great governors. I think in the end, there's a lot of people I love in Congress. The one exception to that might be Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan I really love, and I think he acts more like a governor in terms of his reforms and his instincts. But overall, that's why I've said repeatedly, I think a chief executive at the state level who can take on the mess in Washington is the best pick for Republicans 2 years from now.
Okay. All right, so you're thinking about it. Running.
Well, I mean, I love my state, which is why I ran, I put up with all the grief and all the hassle because I love the state for my children. I also love this country, and whomever it is, I'm going to work hard 2 years from now to make sure we get a reformer who's going to take on Washington and put the power back in the hands of the hardworking American people.
You'd be a big target.